impact on me as a clinician was Carl Rogers. And the reason for that is that Carl Rogers put tremendous emphasis on listening. Like, it's almost impossible to overestimate how useful it is to listen to your clients. Like, you need a meta scheme in some sense. And the meta scheme, I think, is laid out in the Sermon on the Mount. It's something like, orient yourself and your client towards the good. The client has to conceptualize what that might be. You can serve as a guide, but it has to come from that person. Because one of the things that you want to find out from your client is, okay, what's wrong? They have to tell you. And what would not having something wrong look like? Like, what is it, if you could have what you wanted, and that would be good, what would that look like? Okay, so that establishes your star, right? It's like Geppetto establishing the relationship with the star at the beginning of Pinocchio. Here's what we're aiming at. Okay, so now you've got that schema. Here's what we're aiming at. Now you might think, well, now that what happens to the client is they meet their dragons along the way. And their dragons would be, well, now you know what you want, and there are things in your way. And some of those things many of those things are going to be intensely practical. But they're practical / psychological. So maybe someone has a job and they would like to move forward in their job, but they're terrified of speaking in public. Well, is that a psychological problem or a practical problem? It's both. It's also a real problem. In many positions, unless you can speak fluently, publicly, you're going to hit a ceiling and you're not going to go anywhere. And so for the person to move towards that goal, then they have to confront the obstacles that manifest themselves within that framework. And part of your job as a clinician is to identify the obstacles and to discriminate them from things they don't have to worry about, right? Part of it is, you can't just run around and try to combat all the chaos in the world. Some of it is your chaos and a bunch of it isn't. And the chaos that's yours is the chaos that emerges as you move towards a necessary goal. And so partly what you're doing by listening to your client is to help them cut their dragons down to size. Because what'll happen if you start to talk to somebody about public speaking and you really talk to them is that you decompose the problem into a set of maybe 20 sub-problems. Like, well, do you know exactly how to give a speech? Like, what's your theory of public speaking? Do you know how to look at people when you're talking? Do you know how to speak loudly enough so that people can hear you? Do you have a philosophy of public speaking? All those things are necessary in order to do it properly. You need to decompose that with the client, and then to make those problems, you have to decompose them to the point where they can be met by a practical solution. And then you have to guide the person through the implementation of the practical solution. And mostly you do that by listening. It's like what you need to be is the person who helps the person that you're working with orient themselves towards a better future. That's the compact. You and I are in this space at this time to make things better. First of all, we have to decide what better would look like. And second, we need a strategy. And third, we need to, once we have that, we're going to see the obstacles. And some of those are going to be psychological and some of them are going to be practical. And we're going to engage in joint problem solving of whatever sort is necessary in order to minimize the impact of those problems or to gain from the problems. And dream analysis can be extremely useful for that, by the way. It's even more useful for helping the person identify what the goal is, because that's often difficult for people. It's like, well, I know that something's wrong, but I don't know what I want. Sometimes people get so stuck there that they just can't get out of it. So, and then what would you watch out for?
Phenomenologically, the way it shows up, the way it's experienced.
Well, I would say as a clinician, one of the things that you should watch out for is resentment. So there's a couple of rules of thumb that I think are useful. Don't do anything for your clients that they can do for themselves. And don't do them any favors. Now, I think you can step beyond the confines of your role carefully, now and then, to show that there's a more human connection than the merely contractual. I think that's very